This is Newsroom. Hello and welcome from Johannesburg in South Africa. I'm Sam Marshall. This show is live and broadcast from our studios in Auckland Park. We're also streaming live on YouTube, with the entire show available on our YouTube channel. Cape Town Mayor Patricia de Lille has committed herself to address grievances raised by the Municipal Workers Union SAMWU. We unpack the latest. We look at how countries that have been hit by devastating disasters bounce back, or whether they even can. The quality of South Africa's education is back in the spotlight for a while after a controversial opinion survey carried out by the World Economic Forum ranked the country's science and mathematics education last out of 148 countries. We also asked the all-important question, are we an angry nation, and what is contributing to it? This after the latest road rage incident saw a man shoot another in the face during an altercation in Kempton Park. Share your thoughts on Twitter at SABC Newsroom. But first, let's get the day's news with Anine Domel.
Good morning, I'm Anine Domel. Let's just have a look at the stories making headlines today. In the United Kingdom, polls have opened for one of the most unpredictable elections in decades. Millions are expected to head to voting booths to cast their votes today. The election looks set to deliver a minority government for the first time since 1974. It could also push Britain closer to leaving the European Union. Commuters have been warned that there will be disruptions to the Gautrain bus service again this morning. A 1-hour stoppage is expected between 10 and 11 a.m. Employees will be taking a 1-hour lunch break that they are demanding to have included in their contracts. Yesterday, bus drivers embarked on a go-slow at the Midrand and Centurion stations. Meanwhile, Workers' Union NUMSA is still threatening a full-blown strike at the Gautrain if the drivers' demands are not met. A train has been torched near Reunion's train station south of Durban. It is expected that angry commuters set it alight after it had broken down last night. It appears 7 coaches were destroyed in the blaze. The Passenger Rail Agency of South Africa has condemned the act of vandalism.
It was just a pure act of vandalism, because if the train has failed on a section, there's no one who gives a right for it to be banned.
The first suspect in the abduction and murder of Eastern Cape teacher Jade Panayotso will be back in court. Thando Siyoli is expected to make his second appearance in the Port Elizabeth Magistrates Court this morning. He faces charges of murder, kidnapping and conspiracy to commit murder. 2 other suspects, including Panayotso's husband, will reappear in the same court on the 19th of next month. The man responsible for the Facebook assassination allegations of late Minister Colin Shabane will be back in court. Tembani Shabane is expected to appear in the Polokwane Magistrates Court after being released on a warning last month. The late Public Service and Administration Minister and 2 others died when the truck allegedly made a U-turn in front of their car on the N1 near Polokwane in March. And President Jacob Zuma is sending a special envoy to Burundi in an effort to end the country's deadly demonstrations. The violence followed a ruling by Burundi's constitutional court that President Pierre Nkurunziza could run in the end of the June election. It's reported that 13 people have died during the violence. Well, remember, you can find all of those stories on our Newsroom Facebook page. Just search for Newsroom. You can also follow us on Twitter at SABC Newsroom. Sam, back to you.
Thanks, Anine. Now, Cape Town Mayor Patricia de Lille has committed herself to address grievances raised by the Municipal Workers Union SAMWU. Hundreds of workers marched in the CBD to hand over a list of demands. Issues range from healthcare, transport, allowances and wages. To discuss the issue related to the march, we have in studio the City of Cape Town's Mayoral Committee member from Corporate Services, Xanthia Limburg. We also did invite the South African Municipal Workers Secretary, who confirmed that they would be there, Michael Kamala, but unfortunately has not arrived. We are, however, continuing this conversation. Xanthia Limburg, thank you very much for joining us here on Newsroom. One of the questions we would have asked Mr. Khumalo is...
Morning.
Morning. One of the questions we would have asked Mr. Khumalo is whether the workers are officially on strike. Have you been given a notice? Are they officially on strike?
Well, I think it's important to state that the City of Cape Town remains committed to working with SAMU, and we respect the right of workers to engage and participate in legal and peaceful strike action. We have been extensively engaging with SAMU over the last year, and out of that extensive engagement, we have been able to resolve a substantial number of their grievances. However, there are outstanding grievances that still need resolution. And after yesterday's march, the Mayor collected the memorandum from SAMU and thereafter called an urgent meeting with senior city management as well as SAMU leadership. At that meeting, it was agreed on a way forward, which would entail an establishment of a special task team made up of 5 city employees as well as 6 members of SAMU. That task team has now been mandated for the next 2 days to come together and go through the list of outstanding grievances and set a clear plan of action with timeframes attached to it around how we will be resolving those outstanding grievances. We do appreciate that SAMU has agreed to this process, and we believe that it will be a fruitful and beneficial process for all, and that the outcomes would be positive both for the City of Cape Town as well as its employees.
Yep.
This understanding would make us then believe that that SAMU will no longer be engaging with any strike activity.
Okay, so you're saying that over the last year there's been dialogue between the city and SAMU. We've had Mr. Khumalo on more than one occasion saying that there was, in actual fact, 34 grievances. One could argue that that dialogue has not been a quality dialogue, hence SAMU has gone on that strike action, on that march. How are you going to speedily resolve these issues, since SAMU claim that a lot of these grievances have been on the table over the last 12 months? What are you going to do differently this time around?
Well, I think that the dialogue has been successful in that out of those 34 grievances which SAMU submitted, a large number of those have been resolved. There are only a number still remaining that require resolution and agreement from both parties. And yesterday, after the march, we were able to decide on a clear way forward, and we're hoping that that will assist us with resolving those matters once and for all. We are committed to working with SAMU, and SAMU has clearly said that they are committed to working with the city. And so we are hoping for this issue to be resolved within the next 2 days, with final feedback to be given to the Mayor around the resolutions by Monday.
Zantia, but how are we going to work out these issues? Because some of the stuff that Sam was talking about, and it's most unfortunate that Mr. Khumalo didn't come and be part of this interview. And I wonder if he was part of this conversation, whether he would agree with the sense that everything will be okay. Because they're talking about racism within the city of Cape Town. They're disputing a couple of issues. I mean, racism is just one of the many issues that they're talking about. They're talking about administration issues related to it. They want to know about the dismissed shop stewards, whether they would be reinstated. Yesterday we saw incidents of intimidation in the march. There are just so many issues. And I know today we are talking about potentially everybody singing from the same hymn sheet, but there's some serious breakdown in communications. How are we going to make sure in future that these issues are addressed, and that at the end of the day the workers feel that they are adequately compensated, that issues of racism is dealt with? And what are some of the steps that will be put in place to deal with those serious allegations?
Well, the City of Cape Town takes those allegations around racism very, very seriously, and we have investigated a number of those claims. One of the claims which we have investigated and resolved was around transfers that were occurring within the Water Technical Operations Centre. The other alleged claims of racism pertain to the Health Department, We have, as the City of Cape Town, requested CCMA to intervene. We've set up meetings with the CCMA. SAMU unfortunately never attended those meetings in March, and as a result, many of those issues around the Health Directorate has been delayed as a result of SAMU not attending those meetings. The new meetings with the CCMA have been set for the 18th of May, and we're still waiting on SAMU to give confirmation that they'll be attending those sessions, which will be held and facilitated by the CCMA. And so I think what is required is a relationship of trust and respect, but that will not come overnight. We also realize that there are tensions within line management and lower level employees, and in terms of that, the City of Cape Town has committed to initiating training for line managers within our workplace skills plan. We've also acquired a service provider to assist SAMU as well as the other union, MATU, with regards to dealing with disciplinary hearings and grievances, as well as dealing with conflict. And those are the interventions that we are committed to continuing.
How do we build this trust? Some who wants their issues addressed urgently. You're saying that this trust can't be developed overnight, that we need to be all come to the table in many ways. Some who hasn't arrived, as you've stated, to some of those processes that have been put in place. How do we move forward from this point?
Voicing and displaying their anger and frustration.
Well, after the strike action yesterday, we all gathered around the same table, and there was a consensus of what needs to be done and the process that we'll be taking forward. Over the next 2 days, starting from this morning, 10 o'clock, we are meeting again with SAMU, where we will really go through these issues item by item in detail and unpack the solutions which we will implement. The issue of trust and respect within line functions is a clear issue that needs to be dealt with. SAMU has placed some alternatives on the table, like having workshops within our depots where there are some problems. Those are the things that we will embark upon, but we continuously and are committed to keeping our lines of communication open, because I think only through transparent communication can we really build a collaborative relationship going forward.
Zanthia, we're going to leave it there, but thank you very much for joining us. That was Zanthia Limburg, who is part of the Cape Town Mayoral Committee and Corporate Services. Let's take a quick recap on what transpired at the march. Hundreds of members from Municipal Union SAMU marched in Cape Town yesterday, demanding grievances raised last year be given attention. Issues raised include alleged racism and inadequate healthcare benefits.
Voicing and displaying their anger and frustration while making their way through the CBD. But it was quickly brought under control. A memorandum was handed to the city's mayor. She apologized for the lack of proper communication between the city and its workers.
The channels of communication between the city and the unions are not working the way it should be working in terms of the recognition agreement. And this is what I'm putting right today. I want to now, once and for all, sit with the unions and sign off this agreement today. And if there are still outstanding issues, I will deal with them myself.
It will be in bad faith if I say it's not positive. Understanding that the mayor has tried to address the specifics, which we could not address for more than a year, and be prepared to reduce it in writing right away. As we are standing here, she's waiting to see to what extent can we reduce some of our commitments into writing.
Delil met union leaders behind closed doors. Their current strike has not officially been called off, but the union has encouraged workers to return to their posts tomorrow, pending the outcome of renewed talks. The city says refuse disposal has been affected in some areas, but that it has contingency plans in place. Mariska Botha, SABC News, Cape Town.
Let's just take a look at your tweets. Please remember to send us your views on Twitter at SABC Newsroom. This comes from Sitle, who says, most heartbreaking sight is seeing poor Cape Town CBD vendors pick up the pieces of their stalls after they were wrecked and looted. And that's in response to the SAMU march that happened and transpired in the Western Cape yesterday. From David says, it's about time at City of Cape Town asked for a bond from march organisers that is forfeited if there is destruction of property and looting. Hashtag SAMU march. Then one from Bronwyn Newman, who says organised marches have turned out just as bad as organised crime. Hashtag SAMU strike. Hashtag SAMU march. And that hashtag SAMU march failed. Rory Felt says, and here I thought the hashtag SAMU march was going to be a quiet and peaceful march. Why must they destroy property? There are some interesting pictures of that march yesterday. The city of Cape Town, it says chaos in Cape Town CBD, shots fired by cops, municipal workers, 6,000 workers, and some interesting pics on Twitter. And that, of course, is today's picture of the day, which comes from Mervyn Malchas. He says, trigger-happy, nervous cops, police brutality, shots fired by cops at SAMU march. And that's in the CBD of Cape Town yesterday. Today's tweet of the day comes from one Christoph. I condone freedom of expression in the form of protest, except when property is damaged and people get hurt. Unnecessary. That's hashtag SAMU strike. Let's now take a look at the front pages from around the globe, starting in Europe. The Time reports the Queen will be thrust centre stage if David Cameron tries to hang on to power after the election without the backing of enough MPs. Moving to Israel, the Jerusalem Post, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu informed President Reuven Rivlin last night that he had succeeded in forming a government with an hour and a half left before the midnight deadline to build a coalition. And finally, the USA, the Wall Street Journal, the co-pilot who flew a Germanwings jetliner into a French mountainside appeared to have rehearsed the deadly descent on the plane's previous flight the same morning, French authorities said. Some interesting news there. Let's take a look at what's happening around the country today. We start in Port Elizabeth, where Atando Sioli, one of the men arrested in connection with the murder of teacher Jade Panyotu, is expected to make his second appearance in the Magistrates Court. Then in the Polokwane area, the man who made allegations on Facebook that late Public Service Administration Minister Colin Shabane was assassinated is expected to appear in the Magistrates Court today. And in Cape Town, a man who has been arrested for the alleged hijacking of an 85-year-old woman is expected to make his first appearance in the Somerset West Magistrates Court on Monday. Now, one of the important questions we're asking you here on Newsroom, are we an angry nation? This is in relation to an incident that unfolded in Kempton Park yesterday, an alleged road rage incident where one man shot another in the face. You can share your thoughts if you like on Twitter. It's at SABC Newsroom. We take an ad break. You don't go anywhere. Welcome back. You're watching Newsroom. Thank you for choosing to stay with us. Now, on the 25th of April, a deadly 7.8 magnitude earthquake struck Nepal, leaving over 7,000 people dead and 2.8 million people without a home. This is Nepal's worst natural disaster in 80 years. 8 agencies fear that this will cause a mass migration out of the destroyed areas, leaving millions wondering if they will ever be able to return to a restored country. Now, joining us from our Cape Town studio today is President of the Disaster Management Institute of South Africa, Dr. Johan Mini. Doctor, thank you very much for joining us here on Newsroom. What's the first reaction when there's a natural disaster? How should we respond?
Morning, Sam. Disasters unfortunately happen. So there's a level of preparedness that is actually the responsibility of each individual. Persons should be knowledgeable about the risks and the hazards in the areas. And they should have made plans how to respond. So, for example, a person living in Nepal would be aware of the earthquake risk in that area, should be. And if the government was supporting them with disaster risk reduction measures, education, awareness measures, they would know what to do. So it of course depends on the hazard. South Africa, we luckily do not have that much exposure to earthquakes. But we have our own hazards as well.
Doctor, how does a city, country, people, how do they rebuild after a disaster like this? I mean, in Nepal, we started with recovery efforts. Now we're going into another stage where we're now just it's mop-up operations. Then at some point, this city, the officials, senior executives will have to sit down and start working out how do we get this nation back to where it was, or maybe in some cases even better.
Yes, what we're seeing in Nepal now is it's the normal process. Straight after the disaster, you have the initial emergency response. Lives that can be saved are saved. Emergency response and relief is provided. Then you go into early recovery, and that's when you start to mop up and so on. I know at the moment, already on the 2nd of May, the government has indicated that the search and rescue, foreign search and rescue teams in Nepal who are not able to assist with the digging out of bodies are welcome to depart. So we are now past the acute phase, and we are into the phase of preparing for early recovery. This is going to be an extended, long project. It's actually back to development. There is a focus across, especially after the latest Sendai Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction in Sendai, Japan, who also experienced earthquake and tsunami and the nuclear issue together, to really build back better after disasters have occurred. And that's the challenge that Nepal now has. They have a National Emergency Operations Center that has been established, and I have been informed or have seen that they have development officers in each local authority that must now coordinate the funding coming in to restore and rehabilitate the infrastructure. It's going to be quite an issue. Interestingly, Nepal has got a disaster risk reduction consortium, and they've been focusing on retrofitting health facilities during past years to be more resilient to earthquakes. And apparently there has been some success in that regard. So some disaster risk reduction has happened, and we should congratulate them on that achievement. But the hard work now starts.
What is that formula or the criteria for countries to bounce back? I mean, you look at Haiti. In 2010, they had a 7-magnitude earthquake, leaving over 100,000 people dead. They still rebuilding their nation. Compared to Thailand, who successfully restored, and this is quite debatable, Thailand, is their tourism numbers are back. I mean, my brother went a year later, talked about Phuket as being an amazing place for tourism opportunities. Then you see here at home, we've had natural disasters off Durban, Mozambique. What is that formula criteria for an area, a city, a country to bounce back? And how quickly can they bounce back?
The speed depends on capacity, unfortunately. And capacity is part of resilience, and it's this whole thing is about resilience. And there is a United Nations Resilient Cities campaign, and which is happening across the world. which has got a lot of impetus in terms of disaster risk reduction. And they've got certain indicators. And good governance is certainly one of those indicators. A strong civil society is an indicator. Proper disaster response structures and capacity is also an indicator. And then the involvement of not only emergency services, but a wide spectrum of role players, because disaster management and disaster risk reduction is everybody's business. So many parties, it's a whole of society response that needs to happen. In New Zealand, I think, is an example in Christchurch of extremely rapid rebuilding and effective response. So there are examples, there is best practice, but we need to build resilience.
One of the things we're not touching on, and I'm not going to keep you to it, but if we had to talk numbers here, what kind of numbers are we talking about? I know every case, every scenario is very, very different, but are we talking hundreds of millions? Are we talking billions? And where would that money come from?
Yeah, and just the flash appeal for this Nepali incident was, I think, in the order of $415 million. And that's just for relief and response. So money is an issue. And what we need to remember, though, is that every disaster, when a disaster happens, you need to respond. You're taking your money that you were investing in development and you're putting it into response. There's something fundamentally wrong about that. We should be investing in disaster risk reduction before the disasters occur so that there is less impact. The message in that is that as part of your development, you should be doing disaster risk reduction. So a water entity at a municipal level that is building water infrastructure should be doing that in a manner that it reduces risk and that it's part of their business. It doesn't need to be an extra budget item. So disaster risk reduction should be part of the normal operational and capital expenditure of any government entity. So, but of course, disasters still happen and we need to be able to respond to them, and that's where these massive appeals are necessary. Unfortunately, extremely expensive. In Nepal's instance, one of the suggestions is that people need to rebuild, infrastructure needs to be rebuilt, and that some cash for work compensation can be made there so that they get paid for their work in terms of reconstruction and then get the economy back on the go again.
Doctor, we can leave it there, but thank you very much for joining us from our Cape Town studio. That is President of the Disaster Management Institute of South Africa, Dr. Johan Mini, talking to us. Let's just take a look at your tweets. Please remember to send us your views on Twitter at SABC Newsroom. And this one comes from Jim E, who says, "Oh my goodness, earthquakes everywhere. World, what are you trying to tell us?" And that is also in relation to the latest earthquake that struck Papua New Guinea. And that's at hashtag Nepal Quake. Shiraz says, "I am hashtag with Nepal. This Thursday, let's invite the world to take a 1-minute silent pledge at 11:56 a.m. your time on 13th day of hashtag Nepal Quake." One from Tika that says, "Donors in the first world, please know that giving to your local NGO doesn't necessarily mean you are giving to hashtag Nepal Quake victims." And maybe Tika's asking us to investigate the NGOs and the organizations we are donating our money to. Tap Brata says, "Has the hashtag Earth decided to come alive at a whole in this era? From the ground to the sky, is there a new change coming?" And he's asking an interesting question. Hashtag Papua New Guinea earthquake. Okay. Now let's take a look at what's happening on our Newsroom Facebook page today. South Africa and Zimbabwe have pledged to work together and heighten their vigilance to counter terrorism at their borders and in the Southern African Development Community region. Then more than 5,000 people are believed to have lost their lives in the last 18 months attempting to reach Europe via the Mediterranean Sea from North Africa. And British voters get to decide today who will rule the world's 5th largest economy in a tight election that could yield weak government and propel United Kingdom towards a vote on EU membership. You can find all of these stories and more on our Newsroom Facebook page, or visit our SABC website at www.sabc.co.za for news. Okay, we're asking a question. Are we an angry nation? Your reaction on SABC Newsroom. You can share your thoughts there. It's in relation to an altercation that happened in Kempton Park where one man allegedly shot another one in the face related to road rage. Let us know what you think. It's time for us to go on to an ad break now. You don't go anywhere.
Information-hungry viewers stay with SABC News, as issues on the West are different from issues on the East or here in Johannesburg. So it is not surprising that people who follow the news know that there are two things for sure: that anything can happen, and SABC News will tell you when it does. Because we keep the nation fully informed. We are SABC News.
Welcome back. You're watching Newsroom on SABC News. Let's just have a look at the stories making headlines today. In the United Kingdom, polls have opened for one of the most unpredictable elections in decades. Millions are expected to head to voting booths to cast their votes today. The election looks set to deliver a minority government for the first time since 1974. It could also push Britain closer to leaving the European Union. Commuters have been warned that there will be disruptions to the Gautrain bus service again this morning. A 1-hour stoppage is expected between 10 and 11 a.m. Employees will be taking a 1-hour lunch break that they are demanding to have included in their contracts. Workers' union NUMSA is still threatening a full-blown strike at the Gautrain if the driver's demands are not met. The first suspect in the abduction and murder case of Eastern Cape teacher Jade Panayoto will be back in court. Thando Siyoli is expected to make his second appearance in the Port Elizabeth Magistrates Court today. He faces charges of murder, kidnapping and conspiracy to commit murder. Well, remember, you can find all of those stories on our Newsroom Facebook page. Just search for Newsroom. You can also send your comments to @SABC Newsroom. Sam, over to you.
Thanks, Anine. Now, the quality of South Africa's education has been back in the spotlight after a controversial opinion survey carried out by the World Economic Forum ranked the country's science and mathematics education last out of 148 economies that were surveyed. There is, however, an upside in dealing with these dilemmas. Growing South Africa's own experts to generate electricity and do research is at the heart of what UJ Soweto Science Centre does. The centre currently trains 1,000 maths and science high school learners and 600 high school teachers in the Greater Soweto area. Tomorrow, these learners will be doing science experiments, making use of new equipment from a 600,000 rand donation to the centre. And here to tell us more is the director of the University of Johannesburg's Soweto Science Centre, Professor Adwendini Maronga. Professor, thank you very much for joining us here on Newsroom. Let's start with that very controversial WEF report. The Department of Basic Education has dismissed it. Are we in trouble?
I think by now the department also itself recognized that there is a crisis and they are doing a lot to do that. But we cannot only wait on them only. People like the University of Johannesburg are actually trying to come up with initiatives. And one of the initiatives that we're doing is we as the higher education institutions cannot only put the blame, but we also have to say, can we assist? And this is one of the examples that how a higher education institution can assist, because these children are going to end up at our doorsteps in the universities, and we will keep on continuing to complain time and again. And I think it's time for the whole country to say we're in crisis. What do we do about it?
Prof, we're a little bit confused about this because we've got people like the Kutwanong Center that they're turning out 100% maths and science students. We've got the Free State who's improved on their maths and science. We've seen people like Elon Musk. We've seen many South Africans who are innovators in that space, and yet we keep on talking about the fact that we don't have enough scientists, we don't have enough people, the quality of our maths and education is not up to standard. I'm a little bit confused. From a layman's perspective, are we in the red or are we not in the red?
You're only sampling a drop in the ocean. Okay. And if we look at the bigger picture, we need to really go out en masse. And the biggest key question here is the people who are actually supposed to be producing most of those, the teachers. If somebody can come up with a miracle solution to say, what do we do with the current teachers that we have? Are we going to assist them? And this is one way of, we are going to assist them in many ways.
We're short of electrical, civil, mechanical engineers, agricultural, animal, food, soil and water resource scientists. Why? Is it not an attractive industry? Is it not sexy enough?
Actually, science, especially in South Africa, it's lacking role models. The youngsters, they don't see science as sexy as the other industries where we got role models who are probably in other industries. And I think it's time to really start to celebrate whatever we have as Africans and as South Africans, to say we have some people that we can showcase. Once the students and the learners start to see those, then they will say, I can become a scientist.
Forecast for me. What does the future look like if we don't address this issue?
The future is bleak. If you're saying that we're going to solve energy crisis, and if the country one day decide that we're going to build a nuclear power station, then we have to ask ourselves, do we have capacity? Do we have learners and the people that we're generating? The question and the answer is no, we don't.
You've talked about teachers. You're in the business of training teachers in the Greater Soweto area. What is happening on the ground, Prof? When these teachers are coming in, a lot has been said about teachers don't know how to use science equipment. You've got laboratories and chemistry labs gathering dust because teachers are not equipped enough. But what is the sentiment on the ground, and if so, why?
We will have to understand that when the education system changes, it's good on the paper. But on the ground, we didn't have, or we still don't have the mechanisms to make sure that the teachers that are going to teach those new, very looking attractive syllabuses are actually themselves being trained. You are rightly saying that most of these schools do have the equipment, but who is going to train the teachers? And I think that is the main focus. We need to make sure that the teachers that we have currently are trained in using this equipment. Because if we want to be really a knowledge-based economy country, our learners must start to be innovative before they go to the university. And places like the University of Johannesburg, Soweto Science Center, wants to start to set the high school learners before they go to the university. If I take you back, my generation, I only knew about laboratory equipment like test tube, like microscope at the university. Do we want this generation, 21 into democracy, to wait until they go to the university? I think the government have to start stressing that the kids at the high school must start to be innovators.
What's happening tomorrow at the UJ Soweto campus? What am I going to experience?
So at the University of Johannesburg, we are trying to bring the things that the learners will be waiting to do them at the university, to bring them at the Soweto Science Center, so that about more than 130 schools that participate every day at the Soweto Science Center can come and they can learn how to use this equipment so that they are not afraid. They can start really dissecting live organs. They can start to see how electricity is generated. They can start to see how chemicals are made. They can start to make things for themselves before they go to the university. Then, when they get to the university, it's a gap that will be bridged. And when we bridge that gap, it means the university will no longer say, hey, these kids that are coming, they don't know anything, which means now they will be at par level with the others. Because We would like to see really learners that are innovative, learners that will be taking care of the equipments, like if you're going to build nuclear power plant, you are ESCOM. These are the people who will be the take cares of that, and we need to train them while they're still at school.
Prof, about a week ago, we had the Department of Basic Education here in studio. In actual fact, it was the spokesperson for the minister. And they're developing a new program called 1+4 Teachers Model, which seeks to address the issue of poor performance in maths and physics in the senior phase. How does what you're doing at UJ, that interaction on the ground, getting to touch, feel and interact, how does that fit into this program?
Actually, it will go a long way, and I think this is the best way. We at the Science Center, we believe that kids are born natural scientists. But somehow, because we discourage them from touching things, from playing with things, we want to bring that back so that these kids, because it goes a long way of a teacher explaining to them in the school and they don't know what he's talking about or what is being, because everything is abstract at school. The touch and the feel now will reinforce what is being said in the classroom. And in regarding with the teachers in mathematics, we are also training those senior phase mathematics teachers to say you need more experience, you need to know more than the learners themselves.
Prof, we're going to leave it there, but thank you very much. Very interesting conversation. He's the director at the University of Johannesburg Soweto Science Centre, Prof. Aswindini Maronga, sharing what's going to be happening at the UJ Soweto Science Centre. They currently train more than 1,000 maths and science high school learners and 600 high school teachers in the greater Soweto area. Okay, let's take a look at what you say on the social media. Please remember to send us your views on Twitter at SABC Newsroom. This comes from Dennis, who says, just woke up, remembered what happened yesterday, so I'm happy again. Gracias, Barca. Gracias, Messi. Tristan says, it's funny how Barca got a hard team and still won, and Madrid got the easy team and still managed to lose. Some soccer fanatics, Kaizer Chiefs are the local champions here. Pep Guardiola was right. Nobody can stop Messi, not even him. He should just be happy none of his players got Milnered at hashtag Barca, hashtag Bayern. That's from Idur. Nkayiso Zondi says, then we don't have to compare hashtag King Messi with Ronaldo. Hashtag Messi is God of football and we just have to hail the king. Some interesting reactions to what's happening across the world soccer-wise. Chelsea, of course, being crowned the English Premiership champions. A lot of happy Chelsea fans, maybe a little bit too happy. Now, South Africa's first ever green film hits cinemas tomorrow. While being kind to the environment, the Afrikaans film Sommerson stars the likes of Bok van Blerk, Anna Grobelaar and Reinhard Slabbert. Joining us now to tell us more is the film's lead actress, Juanita de Villiers. Goeiemôre, gaan dit?
Môre, dankie.
Let's talk about a film that's completely off the grid. South Africa's first green film. A lot of people won't be able to wrap their minds around that. What does that mean, Juanita?
Yes, I think the project started when they decided to shoot this movie in Mozambique. There's no electricity, so I think that's where the concept developed and started. And they decided, well, if they must do the electricity, let's make the whole project green and leave a better footprint. And we have wonderful sponsors that was involved. Ali sponsored the sunlight panels for us so we can create our own electricity, and we run the admin stations and the makeup stations and the lighting of that. We have projects like the Ripcall send us all their sorry, now I can remember the clothes. All that was green. They made it of recycled items.
So this is all recycled stuff I'm looking at.
Yes. All our hair projects were green. So it was a team effort. While we were on set, we also used glass bottles and tried to keep it as minimal as possible.
Your impact on the environment.
Yes, and like the scripts, there was 21 drafts. They didn't print anything except the last draft we have, so we can learn our words, of course. So they tried to keep that also as minimal as possible. So yes, we had a wonderful team. It was difficult because in Mozambique you had to travel with everything. So and we have the Ford cars, the EcoSport cars that's also green.
I can only imagine. So as an actress or an actor or a director or producer, your job is really difficult because you're putting a film together. Now you've got to be environmentally conscious while you're doing stuff. So it means let me not toss that there or let me not affect this because I found it there. How do you operate as an actress with this overarching constraint on you? How do you react to that?
Yeah. Yes, you know what, was a lot of planning beforehand. Everything, the whole project was a lot of planning because you have to take everything. So we sat down and talked a lot about where can we do the best we can.
Good looking cast, by the way.
Oh, thank you. So yes, it was a team effort and preparation and discussing everything and be prepared for everything. And I think that made the project as good as it can be. And afterwards, they also did the editing and grading and everything on the panels. So we didn't use electricity. So to keep the whole project as green as possible. And in the end, they want to go back and calculate what was our footprint. And then they want to give it back to the community. We want to go and plant trees and maybe help the community with some gardens and everything, just to give back again. And that's so wonderful.
Even I films like you moet dit gaan kyk.
Yes, yes.
How has this process inspired you? I mean, I can only imagine that not only are you an actress now, but when you stop shooting, you're doing your communal things at night, you're sitting around the table talking about the next day's scenes, that this somehow must have come up as in a conversation.
Yes.
Has it impacted you personally?
Yes, at home also try to recycle everything, try to put your different stuff in different containers. And I did a bit more research about paper also, because we go through a lot of papers, and where can you recycle that? So yes, it definitely had an impact on my life also at home. Difficult to get my husband to do that.
Well, you left and you came back in a completely different state.
Yeah, yes.
Now he's got to watch everything.
So, but we're getting there.
Okay, we've talked about all the environmental stuff, but now for the fans, you've got big names like Bok van Blerk in this film. What is Somerson about? What is it?
It's about this couple. They already married for 5 years and they struggle. They Peter, my husband, has a bit of a secret, and Sonia, the character I also play, also has a secret, and they struggle to fall pregnant, and all that put a lot of strain on their marriage, and they decide, okay, let's go have this holiday and try to put the magic back in their marriage. But as they get to Mozambique, everything goes wrong. And then with this, the struggle and all the things, the secrets comes out, and they can forgive one another and move on. So it's a slice of life, but in a funny, nice way.
And how long ago did you shoot this film? We
were there 3 weeks, and we shot some of the scenes in South Africa also.
But this was how long ago?
Last year, July.
Talk to me about being a South African actor, travelling on location, and kind of you've got all this, as we said, constraints on you. Then having it's a rom-com, isn't it?
Well, it's a romantic drama.
Okay, it's a romantic drama.
Yeah.
What are we going to expect? Why is one of the things that I love about South African films at the moment is that Afrikaans movies seem to be really doing incredibly well.
Yes.
Belada vir 'n Enkeling in its first week went close to 10 million in box office returns. Why are we in love with South African movies at the moment?
I think the quality is also starting to lift a bit, and it's not just that slapstick kind of stuff we're making stories, and stories that people want to hear, I think. And I think that has a big impact on our South African market also, yeah.
Wel, Jonita, ons gaan vir almal sê om die film te kyk, né?
Yes, môre.
Atelier met ons is Jonita. Ja, kom uit môre, hè?
Môre, yes.
Okay. Jonita de Villiers talking to us about Somerson, starring the likes of Bok van Blerk, Hanne Globberer, and Reinhard Slabbert, and it's going to be on our South African cinemas tomorrow. Go and check it out. Now, we've been asking you if we are an angry nation, referring to yesterday's road rage incident in Kempton Park. Shloni sent us this tweet from, let's look at Bright Eye. It says, at SABC Newsroom, debilitating socioeconomic conditions make us, hashtag, an angry nation. Occupational stress also manifests in a hashtag road rage. and we've been seeing some incredible stories coming out of South Africa. Now, today we play out with the anti-xenophobia song from Young Artists Unite, a movement of emerging artists who are using their voice and music to send a strong message against the violence against foreign nationals. Of course, we've been playing that song almost every day, and we're doing our bit to say no to xenophobia. Newsroom is broadcast live from our studios in Auckland Park, Johannesburg, every weekday morning between 9 and 10 a.m. We also stream live on YouTube at that time, with the show available on demand on our YouTube channel. This is SABC News. You've been watching Newsroom. We love it in the morning. That's Evan's phrase. Say no to xenophobia. Ciao, ciao.
Peuple africain, tous ensemble nous sommes frères et sœurs. Alors stoppons, arrêtons la xénophobie.
Others are crying. Why can't we live in unity? They're running away, but all I see is fire for their lives. Got the claim to keep, but still in need of loyalty. You're the same as me, stop cruelty.